it helps the non-performer become a performer. I have one student who just graduated. He plays beautifully. He's terrified of getting on stage, and he would not get on stage for it. But being able to use technology opens a door for them to be able to perform and to be heard without being seen. For a long time in music classes, the unseen performer has kind of been shunned, and so music technology opens that door.
I was sharing a little bit early on the live stream how excited I was with this, because part of my story is I studied audio engineering in college, and I was like, what? And played classical guitar and taught coding and robotics. I was like, these people are my people. So I'm really excited to sit with all of y'all. This first question, I think we could actually probably spend a bit of time on this first question. But when most people think about music in education, technology is not something that's at the forefront of their mind. They're thinking just a room full of old instruments. And so with all of you, what would you say, we'll start with Love, what would you say is the connection between music and technology?
So you definitely hit one of the points, right?
It's okay.
More authentically, there's the sound engineers, there's music producers, right? And those, They use digital audio workstations like Pro Tools or GarageBand. They also may use soundboards, right? But more conceptually and a little bit more structurally, right? Music has structure, right? There's structure. There's also computational thinking involved with sequencing and more algorithmic thinking. And so that's something that I think that is a really cool integration and connection that also falls a little bit more naturally, right? So that's my kind of take on technology.
Yeah, and you work for a company that does something called EarSketch. Can you kind of talk about where that connection is happening with EarSketch?
Yeah, so that's exactly what the connection is, right? EarSketch uses code in Python or JavaScript to create essentially tracks in the digital audio workstation. So it is a platform that has the code editor where students can code, and then that translates into a digital audio workstation where the sound files kind of come to life and students can play music with that. So EarSketch also includes the curriculum portion and the sound files, and it also connects to other platforms like Soundtrap, or they can upload their own music. So it's not limited to the sounds in EarSketch, whereas there are still 4,000 sounds in there. But it does still take those computer science concepts like creating functions or creating sections in their code using comments. There's a lot of that integration that connects the music with the technology in our platform.
Yeah, because when I was looking at it, I was as soon as I saw it, I was this makes so much sense, because when you just think of what music is, and it's you've got, okay, let me make this function of this beat, and then let's repeat that here, and here, and it's oh my gosh, that's perfect. That is coding. So that was really, really cool to see. Carmella, what would you say where would you see the intersection between music and technology in the work that you're doing?
I would say, so my answer is a little bit similar. Of course, originally, when you look way back, music and technology intersected in the fact that it was a way to showcase music, right? So just being able to record, being able to use those early inventions. But now, technology is the instrument. And when students come into my classroom, even though students are really excited to see a drum, they're really excited to see a piano, the instrument that they're most excited to see is anything that they can sequence with. So if they see something that lights up and it has buttons on it and they can make loops and things, that's what they're excited about. And they understand that that's creation, and that's the way that most producers are going now. And so for music education, it's very important, because right now we're largely behind the curve. A lot of music teachers have not started incorporating those new tools, and they're not even new, they're old, but you know what I'm saying? So it's really important as music educators that we step up to the plate and we start to incorporate those things that are 20, 30, 40 years old into our lessons and help students to be prepared for the fields that they want to actually pursue.
Yeah, and it opens up a wide array of like just instruments and sounds of like that you otherwise would not have had, and maybe otherwise other students maybe they would not have been interested in music before if they didn't have those type of tools and platforms.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We a lot. What I like to do with students, and I got this from another music teacher friend of mine, but being able to analyze a beat in the same way that you would analyze a score. So sitting down and listening to it, what direction is this sound coming from? What's the shape of the sound? Is it a triangular shape or is it a square shape? You know, how did they sequence this in? What samples are they using? And you know, how far away does it sound like it is? And that kind of stuff. And that's the same thing that you would do as a student in like a composition class or a student in another standard class where you listen, okay, what instruments do I hear? Do I hear a violin? Or, you know what I'm saying? So that's, it translates over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dr. Minces, I have a feeling you have some thoughts on the intersection of music and technology.
I have a lot of thoughts, but most of them were mentioned already by Love and Carmella.
Yeah.
So I was getting goosebumps as they were talking because these are the things I've been thinking so hard about. The only thing that I would add is that most of the music we listen to now is heavily produced. So all music is electronic music now. And even for traditional music, understanding how microphone works and even amplification is something that there's a lot to learn about. So, yeah, you said everything.
Yeah, and Dr. Minces, can you talk a little bit about listening to waves? Because I got a chance to play with it, and I was just like, oh, where was this when I was teaching physics?
I can talk a lot about it. For a few hours. I really love it. So it's the same for me. These are tools. Some of these are tools that I first encountered when I was a physics student, and they blew my mind. And what I thought was, wait, where were these tools when I was in high school, where I hated science? So the idea is to bring that wonder to the classroom through the connections between sound, music, and science. And now we're going into computer science as well. So we created tools that are for visualizing sound, for understanding sound, but we modify them so children can play with sound. So it's not music in a most traditional sense, but it's music in the sense of organizing sound and exploring and being wondered by sound. And the idea is that the tools have very, very low floor access, because some of the digital tools for making music, we actually tried them in schools, and they work if you have a very prepared person teaching the children. But we wanted to create something that first it's online, so anybody you can go home and use it right now. Actually, you did, but also that you can fund exploring right away from moment zero. So that's our philosophy.
Yeah, I loved it because I mean, there's tools on there where you can create a sound and see and zoom in while the sound is happening and like playing with the waveform. Like, man, what a beautiful visualization! Like, it was so manipulatable. And it wasn't just like, because when I taught physics, sound was the part that I was most excited to teach. And I found like one simulation on FET simulations, and it's like, oh, let's learn about waves and amplitude and stuff. So it was really, really cool. So it's listening, if someone wants to check it out, it's listeningtowaves.com.
Yeah. Okay.
If we look at, you kind of spoke to a little bit to this, Carmella, like alluded to it a little bit. How does music, how do these tools and instruments and these virtual instruments, how do they create a more equitable classroom environment for our students?
I would say one thing that it does is it helps the non-performer become a performer, right? So there are some students who I wouldn't necessarily say they don't have the ability to play, but it may be frightening for them to play. Or I have one student who just graduated. He plays beautifully. He's terrified of getting on stage, and he would not get on stage for it. But being able to use technology opens a door for them to be able to perform and to be heard without being seen. And for a long time in music classes, the unseen performer has kind of been shunned, and so music technology opens that door.
Yeah, and Love, how have you seen with the work that you're doing at EarSketch, how has that created more equity for the students in the classrooms that they're using it?
I'd say I feel like it lowers the barrier to entry, right? There's a lot of students who may be unfamiliar with maybe computer science, or maybe they're unfamiliar with music. And so kind of seeing something that's familiar to them helps them get past through that threshold to get to something that's maybe something a little bit more unfamiliar. And so I think I've seen that, and it also broadens the reach, right? Like a lot of students listen to music. I think one of our past studies, we saw 59.8% listen to like 3 or more hours of music every day. And so that's a lot of music being listened to, right? That's something that students have experience in, or maybe they have more confidence in. They're like, oh, I know what I like. I am more familiar with this type of music. I jam to this. And so having that kind of familiarity helps with going past that, right? And so that's something that I've seen with EarSketch. A lot of even teachers who are not familiar with computer science, they're like, oh, I'm very interested in this. Right now we're in the digital age. There's a lot of technology going on. There's a lot of technology careers out there that students may be interested in, but may not feel comfortable seeking more information about. But then with EarSketch or with other music platforms, right, they kind of are introduced to it in more of a low stakes situation. And so that's something that I've seen, that students unfamiliar to either computer science or unfamiliar to music start saying, oh, this is something I enjoy, this is something new, I kind of want to see where this takes me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, the easier access point, and also just the kids that maybe would not have discovered it otherwise. The kid that is really into coding and not into music, but then it's like, well, now I'm doing that. And for me, I remember my introduction to like a lot of the world of technology was I played guitar and I wanted to record it, and this was like back in 1998, and I had this tiny little microphone on my dad's like Windows 98 or something, and it was sound recorder. I was like, okay, let me when I make the noise, it makes that little frequency. Okay, let me record these things. And then I'm like, oh, well, I want to record chords behind that. But this was the most rudimentary DAW. And so I'm like, well, it says there's like a layering feature, and I wasn't using a metronome, but I'm like, okay, let me layer in it. And it opened the world for me. It started with the music, but it opened the world to technology. And then for other students, it's going to be the other way. The technology draws them in, and then they find like their love of music in there as well. So that's really, really exciting to hear. What are some of the ways, and I'll open this one up to y'all, what are some ways that y'all have seen non-music teachers bring music into the classroom? If you're eager, jump in.
Actually, not trying to plug Love, but like literally like the last day of school, my computer tech teacher was using EarSketch.
Oh, no way!
Yeah. They were using EarSketch in the classroom to help to make that connection, and the kids were just enjoying. They were just doing it just as a free activity at the end of the year, just to kind of just play through. I've seen people use Raspberry, that Pi, when that used to be a big thing, and being able to code with that was kind of cool. Those are some ways that I've seen like people use technology in music.
Yeah. Dr. Minces?
I have only seen non-music teachers.
You're like, those are my people.
Yeah. And I would actually love to see music teachers using it, and I actually want to learn. I think our tools would benefit from collaborating more with music teachers. So if there's music teachers out there, I'm not going to name names. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learn from you and to transform these tools into a performance tool. I think so. My dream is that each computer turns into a musical instrument, and the classroom turns into an orchestra. So it's not so, making music is not so individualistic. I'll make this musical composition. I want to hear the sounds coming from all the computers in the classroom. That's a dream I have. I hope it will happen at some point. So, Carmella?
Yeah, no, actually, I remember being in high school, and I remember us using keyboards in that same way when I was in high school, to be able to have like a whole quote-unquote orchestra of musicians who only knew how to play piano, but because you can change out the sounds, it sounded like a full band.
Wow.
And I can absolutely see that being a quick reality.
Cool.
For us, we've seen more non-music educators with our Your Voices Power curriculum. That one is a curriculum and competition that uses EarSketch. And how I've seen that being used is like in ELA or in social studies, like teachers can connect their concepts into like lyric analysis, right? And lyric analysis is text analysis. And so there are connections there. Some teachers may instruct students to create a song about something. Maybe it's a historical event. And so something that we've seen is where the connection of non-music and music teachers in collaboration, because there are other concepts, even in math. I was a math teacher, and like even fractions, like time, sequencing, there's a lot of mathematical concepts too that bring in the music and the arts, and I think that's also something that's really interesting to see how those connections are made.
Yeah, and just hearing you talk about that, it's like it would also bring so much more of a visual aspect to the performance, where it's like you're doing this composition and then there are these like graphic, it's like Fantasia, like the idea of what Fantasia was doing. It's like, how do we visualize these sounds, especially the intro ones where it's like, it's just these colors and these waves and stuff like that. Really could bring that visual piece to it. What are some of the other resources, if there are teachers out there that are wanting to learn how to use music in their classroom? And this could be the music teacher, this could be the non-music teacher. What are some of the resources, in addition to EarSketch, in addition to Listen to Waves, that you guys have found effective, useful, helpful, simple to use? And you can also continue to talk about other ways that teachers are using the platforms that you have worked with. Go for it, love.
I think there's Soundtrap. It's kind of like a similar DAW situation. There are plenty of other, GarageBand, those depends on the familiarity. I'm always going to plug EarSketch, right?
Of course.
But those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Have you all used something else?
I have. I'm actually trying to find one too.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm actually presenting on that tomorrow. That's actually the point of my presentation tomorrow. But yeah, EarSketch is great. Soundtrap is absolutely great. It integrates with a lot of other platforms like Noteworthy and Flat, where you can actually compose. You can actually write out your compositions on those. Of course, like your DAWs like Soundtrap, BandLab, those you can actually create your own music in. There's also Google Chrome experiments, which are awesome, and they're free as well. And when you were talking about your project, it sounds like a more refined version of that, where you can get on and you can kind of like experiment with music. 'Cause the point of the Chrome experiments are not to play the music, but actually to play with the music, kind of like what you were talking about. I'm super excited to try that out. Trying to think of others. Whirly and Musico, like Mu and then ISKO. Those are good for music performance, to record performance, and to allow students to be able to actually play and get feedback, maybe individually. And that's super hard for music teachers to do, because you have usually like 60, sometimes 70 kids in class, even if it's 30. To sit down and to hear every student individually during class is impossible. But with tools like those, you can actually go back and listen to them later. And then there's one more tool, and it's they're actually presenting here today, I believe. It is Charanga. That's the name of it, Charanga. They have by Opus U Learning. I stopped by their booth yesterday, and it was really, really awesome. They have these lesson plans. It's basically a curriculum. And they have these lesson plans that are built in, and they actually have some lesson plans built in where you learn how to make a DAW by using a simplified built-in DAW.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a lot. And if I'm a free resource if anybody needs help with like finding technology.
Yeah, and with some of those, can you talk about some of the collaborate? Do some of them have collaboration features where students can work together and everything?
One of the best ones when I was virtual for having students work together was this just shared piano, which is basically, it's literally a shared piano online where you can share off a link and you can either use the keys on the keyboard or you can actually plug in a musical keyboard with a MIDI cable and be able to like play in. And so students can like be in different parts and they can actually, different houses, they can actually play together on screen, which is great if they're ready for that, and it can be super annoying sometimes if you just have that one kid that's just pressing one key over and over again.
A440, A440,
Right,
A440, A440. I love this.
Yeah. But also, like she was talking about Soundtrap. Soundtrap is actually very collaborative. And so is Flat. Flat is collaborative, where students can collaborate on one score together. Soundtrap, students can be at different computers. I had students who was at the end of the year. They were at different computers, and they recorded themselves playing in to the computers, and they made their own composition, or they made a cover song.
Wow.
Yeah. I had some students doing podcasting in the classroom, and they would do virtually from their home. Like some would go to Soundtrap, and one would add the sound file, and one would make something in iMovie and import it into there, and one would like do the recording file. So it's like a Google Doc,
Right?
A Google DAW, Google Doc DAW.
Yeah, I like Google DAW. That's
Google DAW.
That's a good one.
What about you, Dr. Minces? What are some other resources for teachers?
They say them all. I appreciate that you're going first.
You're like, they got them all.
But if anybody needs any, I have a wealth of them.
Yeah, and so when we're considering like the climate of the arts in school, a lot of these music programs in school is like that's a lot of times the first program that they're considering cutting. So like, what would you say if you were speaking to those that were making the decision? Do we cut these music programs or not? Like, what is the pitch? What is the plea? What do you say to them?
Not.
No, please don't cut them. Thank you. Expand on that, Dr. Minces.
I think arts are super important for cognitive development, and for the most important thing, which is for people to be happy at school. Kids don't choose to go to school; they're brought there, and then they have to sit down and do a bunch of things that they don't choose to do. So it's important to find ways that they actually enjoy their time there. But even more than cutting or not cutting music, I think it's worth to look at more integrative ways of to do more integrative things in school. So it's not like so much like subjects. You have to learn this very abstract thing that it might not be helpful for your life at all. I think it's better to do things that they create products that they enjoy creating, and I think music is one of those things that everybody cares about. And there's so many things to learn in the music making process, including music, but also that go beyond music. For example, computing or physics. So even more than keeping or not keeping one particular program, I think it's good to think structurally of what schools should be doing.
Yeah, that's like the bigger solution, because it's like if music is in your physics class, if music is in your coding class, if music is in your math class, is in your science, is in your history class,
and in music class,
and in music class.
And math is in your music class.
Yeah.
But in the meanwhile, don't cut it.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, still don't cut it,
Yeah.
but we're still gonna sprinkle it everywhere we can. Well, Love, what are you optimistic about when it comes to music and music education?
Oh, I think I'm very optimistic. There's a drive to connect. There's a drive for like interdisciplinary reach, right? And I think that's something that's really great to see. That how can we bring like computing to life? Like how can we see it, or how can we hear it? And I think that's something that's fascinating, and I'm very optimistic about seeing that in classrooms and seeing that student engagement, because that engagement piece is so hard if it's just like a workbook or just pieces of paper, like if it's brought to life in some way that like involves other senses, right, that is so much more, it makes the concepts more ingrained into what they're learning. And so I'm very excited to see what students also create. It's the creation part, right?
Yeah.
Students are so what's the word, like just so talented, and it's so great to see something that they not only enjoy but also can like have something like a product, or not even a product, but just something that they can show others. So it's just great.
Yeah, it is good. Well, love, Carmella, Dr. Minces, I appreciate you. I love chatting with you guys about this, and I'm looking forward to continuing to see and hear what the work is that you'll continue to do in the classroom. So thanks so much for coming on the live stream today.